Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Footy Banter and Insights. Today, we are here to discuss the APT ruling between the Premier League and the Man City team. Let's hand it over to Rahul, where he'll kind of going to give us a summary of the whole episode.
Just to start with, just to clarify, this has got nothing to do with the 115 charges of the Man City case. This is a completely different case. This basically was a case where there is a ruling brought in by the Premier League. If there is an associated party transaction, then it has to be done at fair market value, just to avoid the Gulf owners or any other owners getting a sponsorship deal at an inflated price and then disrupting the market. So this was the specific case. And even though everywhere it was quite popularly populated that Man City have won the case, if you look into the detail, it's a fairly balanced decision where certain points have worked in favor of City and certain points have worked in favor of Premier League. So basically, the judgment is that the APT transaction ruling is fair. Premier League can govern the APT transaction and it has to be done in a fair market value. But there are certain points which were not done correctly, which now needs to be taken care by the Premier League. One major point which is going to affect quite a few clubs is currently in the APT part, the shareholders' loan, which is treated as interest free, is not being covered. So, which has been come down heavily by the tribunal, where it has been clearly mentioned that this should be covered because obviously it is being undue advantage is being given to the club where the interest part is not covered in their P&L. Apparently, this is a very big point for Arsenal, which they have around 200 million shareholders loan, which will now come into an issue. Second point, which worked in Man City's favor, was there is a format in which the related party transaction का fair market value निकालने के लिए they will evaluate a equivalent deal of some other club, and that is a process being followed by the Premier League. So currently, City was not given a chance to challenge the findings of the panel by presenting the whatever data they have. City was not given a rebuttal chance, which was found to be a little unjust. So that is also probably something which will have to be changed in the process, where whatever findings is done by the panel, the opposite party should have a say in it to justify their point of view. So that's the major two things which have worked in favor of City. But the Premier League's rule is still there, and it's not like you can just go ahead and make any deal with any associated party. It has to be at a fair market value still.
In the broader aspect, I believe this is not Man City versus Premier League. This is Premier League with against any club, because this is a precedent being set, right? Like if one club sees another club abusing a loophole, nobody's going to stop that, because of FFP there are many restrictions on how you have to generate revenue, and if not homegrown players and something like, then such loopholes will always be abused. So it is all on Premier League to fill those gaps. I believe since past 5 years, Premier League has tried enough, but every season a new loophole comes up. Like Chelsea have conveniently sold their own training ground to their holding company, like the Blueco. It's a sister company of Clear Lake Capital. They have sold the training ground. They have sold the hotel. So all these loopholes have to be filled in if they want a fair playing stance for all the clubs. Otherwise, the bigger clubs with bigger pockets of money, bigger owners, will always have an advantage. But again, said and done, I believe every season there will be a loophole which will be abused. So Premier League has to be quick in filling those gaps, because if they are not done rapidly, then one rule of abuse can take any good club 2 years ahead of its peers, because the football moves so fast. If for example, Man City has £100 million advantage because of this rule, it's a big gap between Man City and other clubs. So I believe it's not Man City versus Premier League. It's about Premier League setting their own precedents. And as much as I read, clubs like Chelsea, clubs like Everton and Newcastle, all three of them who have big owners were the witnesses for Man City supporting their cause. and other clubs like United, Liverpool, Arsenal were against that. So I think it's a classic case of being convenient. It's not about supporting a cause, it was just what's convenient to each club and their financial practices. It's being followed. So it's on Premier League how fast and how efficiently they are able to fill in this loophole.
Right.
Otherwise, the gap between bigger clubs and the smaller clubs will obviously keep widening as in with time, which they should be avoiding if they don't want, if they want Premier League to have its own status and it doesn't be like any other Spanish league or a Italian league where the gap between a top level team and a 50 or mid table team is so big. That's why we enjoy watching Premier League, right?
So just to
Because
give a background, Premier League introduced these associated party transaction rules when Newcastle takeover happened in
yes,
2021,
yes,
right? And the fear at that time was, as Rahul alluded to it, was that teams that have been taken over by sovereigns like
yes,
Saudi Arabia or in case of Man City as well. These sovereign entities own a lot of companies which can enter into a sponsorship deals with these clubs at an inflated value. So, for example, City they wanted to enter into a $80 million deal with Abu Dhabi, right? And that's where the when this worry came up, uh, Premier League wanted to benchmark these sponsorship deals with other deals that have already happened in the market, so that these deals don't happen on an inflated price. So, for example, in this case, they were benchmarking it to Arsenal's deal, which was done with Emirates at that point, which was a $50 million deal. And that's where the question came up that why is Man City getting a deal which is 60% higher than an Arsenal deal which has a much bigger fan base than Man City has and a much higher commercial value, right? So the whole concept of introducing these rules were to actually avoid these things. But also, as Rahul mentioned, to the credit all of the tribunal's decision, shareholder loans correctly should not be excluded from this thing, because shareholder loans are again basically the owners of these companies giving loan to the club at no interest cost, correct? And such loans should also be benchmarked to the ongoing similar loans that are happening in the market, right? And the subsequent interest should be charged to the club. So I think, in a way, as Rahul mentioned, the result of this is the outcome of this trial was very fair, according to me. And I think in the longer run, and of course, the tribunal bench also commented that these rules are, in fact, in general fair and for the betterment of the Premier League, right? So I think the overall judgment is very good to see that they have been more practical and pragmatic about how they have passed the judgment. So yeah, I think overall it's not a bad thing. Of course, couple of procedural points that Rahul mentioned were, of course they need to be taken care of in terms of the team that should have an opportunity to challenge the decision, and they should have an access to the database which the Premier League is referring to while passing these judgments on the sponsorship deals, right? So that is a valid point as well, which they have kind of come up with.
The
Um,
only issue here
yeah,
is, I think so, in the Premier League, the system is that I think so around 13 or 14 clubs have to vote in favor for any change.
yeah,
correct.
So that is where the problem will arise now, because this unsecured shareholders loan, with interest-free shareholders loan, is being probably been across the board. Probably 7, 8 clubs
Yeah.
would be affected by it. So to vote against your benefit for a larger gain is the problem. I don't know how many clubs will be able to do that, and whether that will eventually come into the play or not. That is where the concern will come in.
But it's a very small, Rahul. It's a very small. It has a very small ramification, the shareholder loan, because I'll tell you, it might be prevalent across the clubs, but if you see at the UK interest rates that are going on, they are not very high, right? So even if you are taking $100 million loan, उसमें साल का interest को 4 या 5 million होएगा.
So, but
So
if you see, अगर Arsenal के लिए 200 million का है loan,
it's
is
a $10
around
million hit.
10-12 million hit, but 10-12 million is a 60 million player over a 5-year contract. It is small, but it is not completely insignificant. It is decently impacting you. You'll probably
Yeah.
not Havertz signing over a period of 5 years is equivalent to a first one this loan.
But suppose you put yourself in, suppose Arsenal shoes, right? Or put yourself in United management shoes. Would you prefer taking that hit of like 5-10 million, whatever it
Yeah,
is? Or
agreed.
would you prefer that Man City signs $80 million, $100 million deals, sponsorship deals, and kind of run away with like the trophies and the big players, right? So,
So yeah, that point is taken. Agreed.
yeah, you have to select the better
Worst.
of the, yeah. So there are two evils. You have to like select which one
Better
is,
of
yeah. So,
But it's not either or, right? Like both of them can be targeted, like in the fair way. I believe the judicial system of changing a law is being tested right now. Like how efficient the judicial, like Rahul Bhai mentioned, 13 or 14 teams have to vote for or against any law being passed. I think it's going to be a very convenient and a very, like it's a very democratic, not even democratic. It's like whatever suits one, they are going to vote for it, right? It might not be the best for the league, but everyone, जो भी उनको suit होता है वो ही होने वाला है. So it's not a third party or a independent body taking the decision for Premier League. So I think fundamentally the system is somewhere flawed.
Yeah, because the shareholder loan, interest-free shareholder loan, on the face of it, I think so. Anyone who hears about it will say that okay, it's fair, it should not be allowed.
I'll tell you,
But
when Abramovich was selling the club,
19 out of 20 clubs voted in favor of this,
correct,
including Man City, who went ahead and challenged it. But everyone voted in favor of it. So that is where the system is, where you are correctly pointing out, Ishan, that everyone will be self-aware. What is beneficial for them will be first priority, and if they are the one who is forming the rules, that's a little bit of a disparity there.
But there's so much of conflict of interest involved, right? Like कि 20 लोग मतलब वो खुद के लिए ही करने वाले हैं. So like anytime whenever a law is made, for example in a country, government is an independent body trying to make the law for the best of the country and not for the best of the individual citizens or individual industries, right? Like यहाँ पे clubs are taking decisions
or how to govern themselves.
Yeah, so that's not fair, right? Like
but that's
fundamentally
the case
very
each and
flawed.
That's the case with each and every democratic setup, right? Like any democratic setup around the world, that's where capitalism comes into the picture, right?
Varun, but at least individual body is taking that decision. Here, the club itself is taking the decision.
Yeah, but it's a democratic decision, right? Every club has its own democratic decision in this to make, whether it's good for them or not good for them, correct? I understand your broader point, correct? But anything that involves democratic decision will always have these loopholes and flaws and judicial kind of hang-ups around it. So,
like the system of 14 teams arriving at a decision, like 14 teams requiring the vote for the law to pass, like that system itself is somewhere, not at the best. I'm sure the lawmakers would have thought a lot about it before making such laws. But I believe justice won't happen. It will just be whatever is beneficial to everyone. It will happen like that.
That's how democracy works in every field.
Yeah. Not in governments. Like governments will make the decision what is good for the country, and like I said, not for individual industries. Like industry, for example, a tobacco industry doesn't make rules for itself. The government makes it.
It does.
It does in a way. Okay, lobbying happens, but like on paper, government makes the decision for them. Like there's an individual body trying to govern something. Here मतलब वही खेल रहे लोग और वही law बनाने का कोशिश कर रहे हैं. So बहुत बड़ा conflict of interest. It's okay. We can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I completely get your point, but it's just that uh, there is kind of, if you want to have some democratic voting in this, and if you want to give power to individual member clubs of the Premier League, then I mean, they will have say in it, right? Like, or you can do is like the Premier
Premier
League.
League being so strong itself, like the body should be so strong itself, they will make the decisions for themselves.
No, but so again, there are two different things, right? So there is the Premier League body itself are the clubs, correct? Who actually make the Premier League. It's the voting rights, right, that are shared. So the FA is very different. So FA is the governing body in England, correct, which governs
Yes,
the rules and everything. So, but FA doesn't control the Premier League. Premier League is a private league kind of a thing, which is a very different kind of a setup.
very different than an IPL, maybe, for example.
Yeah, exactly, right? Very different than an
Yeah.
IPL. But you see, IPL maybe there are rules which are favoring certain teams
Yes.
just because.
See, whenever human element is getting involved,
Exactly, right?
it's not going to be any leak proof or corruption proof. It is
Exactly.
going to be there. But
Yeah.
system wise, I think an independent body ruling over a
But
system is better bet. I believe.
I just don't get the logic of the 14 member voting one way.
Exactly.
Why doesn't the
It's
majority
the
work? Why
it's
doesn't the
the
majority work?
usually it's a super majority, right? Like 66.6% is taken in a lot of parlance as the way
Okay.
to earn that super majority.
Oh, I
There
didn't
has
know.
to be
66%.
certain things के लिए आप रखो, it still makes sense, right? For everything, if you have to have super majority, it doesn't work, right? If there is something which needs to change, it's very tough to get it changed, right? Once you get
Correct.
something.
Correct. Correct.
So,
Correct.
But that actually goes both the ways, right? That change, difficult to get it changed, works both the ways. For example, suppose these rules are passed, correct? And then there are takeovers that are happening, and since seven clubs are owned by, say, Middle East countries, right? Or whatever, like, agar seven clubs are owned by Middle East countries, still they won't be able to change these rules, right? Back in their favor. So that works in both the ways. When you want to pass a rule versus when you want to eliminate these rules as well. So it's kind of
But
agreed.
Varun bhai, we are in the democratic system. We have always believed, living in India, I think it's better to change the rules faster than slower.
Have a super majority, but
I
not for
was
all rules.
watching La Liga games. Their VAR system is so much better than Premier League. Like
the
if you
VAR system that they use
either
in Euro.
stupid, they make those lines. वहाँ पे there is a proper 3D diagram showing where the player's body is. So
Yeah.
why not bring it in the Premier League
Premier League
and
is getting
use?
that in. Premier League is
Yeah,
getting that in.
But
I
the
think so.
VAR rule in Euros was so good. Like we
yeah.
got decisions in like such a quick instance, right? So
Arsene Wenger is the technical committee chairman, I think, of UEFA or something like that. He's
I
involved in that capacity.
yeah, but Euro में the VAR rule was very like I didn't hear any major controversy
But the
like or
technology in La Liga is so much better. Even the camera angle, the everything, like it gives you a clear picture rather than the stupid lines that these VAR refs keep making. It's very subjective. वहाँ पे there's a proper 3D diagram which shows where the player's body was and where the defender's body was. So, it is more convincing, I would say, than anything. If it's accurate or no, I don't know much. I'm not in the position to answer, but it seems more convincing.
think so. Premier League have adopted that, but they've been delayed for some technological reason. Probably
Okay,
they will
okay,
start it soon. This is what I heard at the start of the season.
okay.
but are you guys sure for something like VAR technology implementation you need these 14 member votes and all of those things?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah, because I'm not sure whether that is the area which is covered under the super majority voting and all of those things.
this season at the start, Wolves had put in that
Yes,
remove VAR,
yeah,
completely remove VAR. So that they needed 14 votes to change. Whatever changes, significant changes, maybe technology changes के लिए voting नहीं रहती होगी. I'm pretty sure on that because that is, I don't know, maybe that also will need. But I think so all the decisions are by this 14 votes.
But should they remove VAR?
I don't think so.
And
Right.
they should improve it. They
Yes.
They
should
should
improve.
improve it,
Yes.
right? Like so,
Yes.
but that's what I'm saying. If there was only like a majority thing instead of super majority, you probably don't know. Remove Vieira would have actually
See,
passed you.
remove VAR, I still agree that's a very big thing. For that, maybe you need a super majority. But
Okay.
certain small things you have to have with
But
majority.
then, how do you define what's a small thing and what's
That's
a?
what the governing body should decide, right? Which is a that
I
is where they
believe
are.
I don't
That's
think
where
any.
they are.
उसके लिए भी super majority चाहिए रहेगा to decide which is major thing or not major thing.
I don't think a club
I
would be
mean,
against using VAR or any technology per se, but it's just how human element is still involved in that
yeah.
technology is what they are trying
They
to
need
avoid as much as
consistency.
possible.
They need consistency.
Yes.
I somehow believe that this clear and obvious rule is something which messes up Premier League's VAR. It's like if it's very clear and obvious, then only will intervene because it's the same decision. In a Arsenal match, it will be not a penalty. In a Man City match, it will be a penalty. They have to somehow make it consistent. Okay, whatever the decision is, it will be consistently across,
Yes.
and it is possible with technology. I don't think so. It's that tough a job.
Yeah, Rahul bhai, the aim should be to remove as much human element as possible. Nikalo human element and just let technology do its own thing. Like I think technology is well advanced to make those offside calls or something. I think red card issues and all such things will still require human element involved because I don't think technology is so advanced that they can make the red card call. But
You need.
offsides, though,
I'll tell you a
definitely.
simple solution. You need to make referees more answerable for their decisions. Correct? Or there should be repercussions for every wrong decision that the referee makes or every blunder that the referee makes.
You can't do that. Yeah, you
Why not?
can't
See,
repercussion.
if the no, my point is that in any job, correct, any job across, correct, you have a system where there are people who are reviewing each and every of your decisions that you make, correct, and you are kind of judged based at the end of that based on like how many decisions have you got correct, how many decisions have you got wrong, and that's across any field, right? Why are we excluding referees, right? Like even cricket has that, right? Even in cricket, the umpires are actually judged based on how many calls are actually they are getting correct and wrong in terms of on-field calls versus the reviews that are
But
taken by
Varun, by cricket,
teams,
it's
right?
very black and white. It's not as grey as in football. Football has a lot of grey areas involved. कि इसने tackle किया, इसमें slip हो गया. Cricket is very black and white. If you go, the nature of the sport is very black and white, I believe.
No, I'm just talking about the blunders. Like I'm just talking about there were like blunders last season where the referee came out and said, "Oh, I forgot to draw the VAR line from this player."
Yeah, again
Correct?
in the Tottenham match against Liverpool.
It happened in the Arsenal game as well, right? Like the referee was like, "I took the wrong player while drawing the VAR line." That's a blunder. How black and white more do you need, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm talking about such decisions. Like you
Yes,
need
yes.
to kind of put the referees under the scanner, correct, for such decisions that are happening. So unless you do that, right, unless you make the people accountable, they are going to run havoc. So it's
I believe the best performing referees would be coming to Premier League. वो ऑलरेडी फिल्टर होके ही प्रीमियर लीग में पहुंचते होंगे और इससे ज्यादा फिल्टर करने जाएंगे देन आई डोंट नो कितने रेफरीज बचेंगे.
But once you reach there, then at least if you are still at good, then you should be at that level. If you're deteriorating or if there's something which is not
there should be a
working,
promotion demotion kind of a thing. If you're not doing well, you are demoted to championship to referee those games, right? No, I'm
it does
serious.
happen. It does
I'm
happen.
serious.
But
If the
actually,
clubs are
No.
if the clubs are relegated, so should you, right? If the clubs are relegated, the referee should be relegated as well for their poor decisions. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you liked it. Hit the subscribe button, like, share, and do let us know what you feel about the decision that the tribunal has given out. See you next time.